one thing that I want to start off with is that as much as body position gets a lot of attention, it's usually down the list of things that people need to work on. And I'm talking also about even on the racetrack where body position has a lot more, put it this way, it's more important on the racetrack. Even so, I put it down the list, and it gets in the way of your handling your bike or your comfort or your, then that would be something to address. But usually, if you just are comfortable on your motorcycle, you sit upright and you're relaxed and your arms are bent, then you're fine. Like on the street, on the racetrack, you do need to get more involved. That said, there's an awful lot of reasons to incorporate a more active body positioning. Now, it is primarily, what is that position? And this is something we do at the non-sport bike day, and I do it some on the parking lot course and in the street training, but that we can sit down, we do a seminar, and we show you, the principles of the proper body position. Ultimately, how you determine what's a good body position for you is, because every bike is different, every body shape and size is different, is that you're on the motorcycle and you're relaxed. You feel as though you have a good purchase on the bike, as in a good stability, and that your arms are relaxed. I'm talking relaxed, so that after you counter steer, you feel like you could almost let go of the handlebars. Now, again, there are other reasons why you don't want to do that, because of, not every bike is neutral handling. And so you do need to keep sometimes some pressure on the handlebars, tracking the way you want it to. But if you were to be able to imagine yourself in the corner, and you have to keep your hand on the throttle, obviously, because to maintain your path, could you be as relaxed that you could hold onto the handlebars with your thumb and your forefinger and, keep the throttle on? That would be the ideal sort of test. Now, your body position has to be to help you, allow you to do that. You need to let your body be in a position that you feel as though you're in balance, that you're not holding yourself with your handlebars. That's a big no-no. So how do you do that? Well, a lot of people, especially street riders and on cruisers, they tend to sit too far back, and they end up, with the long arms and recliner sort of body position. And that's not going to increase your control at all. The other reason to have loose arms, I'll say loose, but bent elbows, is because when you're counter steering, that if you don't need a little primer on counter steering, we did a whole thing last week on that, and the video's up on the YouTube channel. But for you to counter steer fluidly, you want to have those arms bent. Now I'm going to share my screen here for a second. All right, you can see the difference between the two riders. Pretty obvious which person is interacting with the motorcycle in a way that's going to help them with, control the motorcycle. And also with those loose arms, just the practical aspects of riding on the street is that you hit a bump or something, and that jarring from your front wheel to your suspension goes to your handlebars, goes to your arms, and you're creating a problem for your chassis and your tires to actually manage something like an abrupt bump. So the person on the right in the yellow bike is clearly, not doing it right. They're sitting upright, arms are straight, and they're also, I can't quite tell there, but they're sitting too far back on the seat. So the person on the left is definitely got looks like her body is much closer to the tank, and she's got that really nice bent elbow posture. Also, you can see that the person on the right is pretty much just leaning with the bike, which is fine. But you can see just that little bit of body positioning with the person on the left in the black leathers just is engaged with the bike. And obviously, if you were to think about your motorcycle as a dance partner, and look at these two riders here, which one would be the more fluid dance partner? Who would you want to dance with, So keep that all in mind, is that because your motorcycle really does respond to the precision of your actions, but also the fluidity of your actions. So put your body in a position that allows you to do that. Okay, so that's just sort of the very basic sort of why you want to, what the body position needs to be, what it needs to be so that you can be loose on the bars, and to also feel as though you're in balance. Because if you're not in a position that makes it feel like, you know, the bike is stable, then that's a problem too. And like I say, a lot of people sit too far back in the seat. If you're seated more forward, you are now more between, positioned between the two tires or the two wheels. So if you're more in the center, you're going to be, you know, really weighting both front and rear more equally. If you're sitting too far back, now you've got your front wheel, let's say this front wheel is going to be unloaded, and a unloaded front wheel is less stable. You think about loading the suspension and loading the tire, you've got more traction, you've also got more stability. So with that in mind, if you get on your motorcycle and you tend to sit, you know, so you might ask, well, what's too far back? Every bike's different, every person's different, but um, and handlebars and all this stuff sort of makes a difference. That I typically say a fist width. You know, so if your crotch is here and your gas tank is here, and that's sort of where I sort of use as a guideline. If it's too much farther back than that, then you're now starting to unbalance things. And also, depending on your handlebars, you might actually be reaching really far. Now you're going to look like that rider who's uh, the yellow arrow stitch or whatever he had on. Now you're going to have those stiff arms, those straight arms. So just scooch up a little bit in your seat, and so that you make sure that those arms are bent. They don't have to be bent crazy. The person on that other motorcycle was crouched forward, obviously in an athletic position. So you don't have to go that crazy, certainly not on the street. And let me show you another photo. Okay, you see this guy here. This is another problem. You can see his arms are straight. Actually, his inside arm, because he's taking a left, you know, toward us, his inside arm is bolt straight, and his outside or right arm is also straight but slightly bent. But you can see, what I want you to notice here is not only is his arm stiff, but you see how he's actually counterweighting. He's counter leaning. So he's not leaning with his motorcycle. He's upright. So he's leaning to the right, and he's leaning his body to the right, but his motorcycle is leaning left. And there are times to do that, but it's not when you're doing a normal speed corner. So this would indicate to me that, you know, not only is this would be somebody I would fix that, because it is detrimental to the handling of his bike. You can also see how he's all the way back in his little bucket seat. And, you know, you can cruise, there's no problem with that. But when you're in corners, just scooch up a little bit, you know, get off that back, you know, sort of backrest part of your bucket seat and just scooch up a little bit. He might have a fist between his crotch and his tank, but I'm seeing more than that right there. So, and that's another example. But this is a case where counterweighting, that usually indicates that somebody's a little anxious about leaning, because they know they have to lean the bike, but they don't feel comfortable leaning, so they'll keep their body upright. And that actually makes the bike lean more. And that's what we'll talk about next. So what are the reasons? Why do you actually want to do anything except just sit upright in the seat? Say you can sit upright in the seat, you know, it's okay, but you're not engaging, you're not using a tool that's available to you. But what happens when you're in corners that are a little, you know, a little bit more aggressive and you're sitting upright, the bike is now going to lean, let's say, to a point where you might start dragging your floorboards. Now, all of you who've done a non-sport bike day know what it usually the progression is. You go out there and you start dragging things and you go, I can't go any faster on this motorcycle because I'm dragging my floorboards and my side stand and my foot pegs and all that. And so we come in and we hear that and we give you a body position seminar, and suddenly you realize, you know, that you can just, by positioning your body toward the inside, you're able to gain enough ground clearance that you're no longer touching all those parts onto the ground, and you can maintain, even if you don't go faster or you lean more. You could, now you've got probably 2 degrees more lean angle available to you, but it's just that you're, even if you maintain the speed and lean angle you were at before, you're doing it safer. You're not dragging things, or you're not really at the limit of your motorcycle's capabilities. So just by leaning toward the inside, you are now making it so that the bike itself does not have to lean as much. Now, why is that? Well, it's because I didn't get this graphic up, but it's in my book. It's in the Riding in the Zone book. Is there's a combined center of gravity. So the bike alone, the center of gravity, let's say here's the wheel and this is the top of the motorcycle. It's the engine. And the way the motorcycle, when it leans, it's actually pivoting around the center of gravity. Now, this is your front tire. You may say, well, my front tire doesn't leave the ground. Well, that's where countersteering comes in. So it's pivoting around the center of gravity. You put yourself on it now. Now you've got whatever, 100, 200 pounds on a motorcycle, 300 pounds. And now you've affected, you've increased quite a bit of the combined weight. So if you're leaning with the motorcycle, that's all fine. If you suddenly start to lean enough that you're starting to drag parts, now if you just leaned in more, the bike doesn't have to lean as much because you're changing that combined center of gravity, because you've got a center of gravity. The engine, you can't move that, but you can move your center of gravity. And the bigger you are, the more effect you'll have. The more you weigh on a lighter bike is going to be much more effective. Now, the other thing about it is that you see the racers, hanging off and to the extreme. That's fine for that level of riding, but we don't need to do that on the street at all. I don't do that on the street. I mean, I'll move my butt off a little bit when I'm really ripping, but generally not. The benefit of just leaning your body from your butt, just rocking onto, like I'm on my chair, I'm just rocking to my left sit bone, to my right sit bone, to my left sit bone. So this is my left, and go back and forth like this. And your eyes are always looking toward through the corner. So your head is guiding your nose and your chin, and your body is just leaning into it. Your shoulder and your head are leaning into the corner. Think of it as leading your dance partner. Same thing. If you were wanting to go this direction and you leaned this way, that would be counter to what you actually want the motorcycle to do. So it's just a simple thing like that. If you're used to sitting upright and you then start to do even a little bit of body position changes toward the inside, it'll feel like you're hanging off and you're going to fall off the motorcycle the first time you do it. But that, to get the most benefit out of gaining that ground clearance, is really your head and your upper body. So there's no need to hang off, your butt off like the racers do. You just sit in the seat and you rock from one sit bone to the next, and that's it. And you guide the motorcycle. You're still countersteering. This is not effective for initiating lean. Will hanging your body off cause the bike to change direction? Sorta. It'll kind of drift. Now, I only weigh, 150 pounds. I'll get on an 800-pound motorcycle. You think I'm going to be able to cause a motorcycle to actually turn? I mean, like with some authority and precision by just leaning my body? That ain't going to happen. So it's countersteering is how you do it. The body it helps to, it's an aid to countersteering and lean initiation. So by all means, that's another benefit of it. So we got ground clearance as a benefit. Proper body position for keeping your arms relaxed is a benefit. And now if you are also incorporating your body position, it now will also guide the motorcycle a little easier. I mean, why not, right? You've got that weight on top of the bike. Just sort of get your shoulder and your elbow down, and you're going to be engaged with the rider, with the motorcycle, and you're going to be much more, feel like you're part of the bike. And that's really the other benefit, is it engages you with cornering. You sit there and you're kind of being passive. Well, you can do that, just as long as you make it home safely, that's fine. But if you really want to start to go to the next level and engage with the bike, then you get your body position involved. And that brings you to another level of that engagement, allows you to start to develop a deeper sense of traction and chassis dynamics in your suspension, and everything it starts to come from something that kind of feels inanimate to starting to feel more organic. So that's another real benefit of it. Now, you're also going to gain more control, like I say, because you're going to your ground clearance is going to be greater if that's a problem. Now, well, ground clearance, not only is it to to keep hard parts from scraping, but it's also by keeping the contact patch. When you lean less, the contact patch is now, if this is your tire, you lean a lot, it's going to be all the contact of the pavements here. Now, if you lean less, it's now going to be more in the meat of the tire. So just by leaning in your body in and the bike not leaning as much, you're now changing where that contact patch is from the very edge to the more closer to the center. The way that the contact patch is located out toward the edge of the tire has the circumference of the tire smaller. So if you can move that closer to the center, then the bike has less torque on the chassis. So that's another, that's another control thing. And those are the sort of things that if you're riding in the rain and, you want that tire to be more toward the center, get your body to the inside, the bike stands upright just a little bit more, just you get two degrees. You're riding safer. And even if you don't go any faster, you're now just by adding your body position, you've changed the contact patch location and you've gained ground clearance. So there's that. So how do you do it? What do you do? So let me look and see what I've got for another image. I'll share my screen again. When you first think about body positioning, you think about riding a sport bike or a sport tourer. Well, it applies to all motorcycles, including and especially cruisers, because you're the ones, those of you who ride those are the ones that are actually going to have more ground clearance issues than anybody else. So you can see that this is just, you can see he's not doing anything crazy. He's not moving his butt off. He maybe moved it over a little bit. It looks like this is a total control course at Lee Park's total control that, and this is one of the parking lot things. One of the things he teaches is kind of extreme body positioning. It's not anything that I would ever spend a whole lot of time on, but he does, only because extreme body positioning on the street is really, it's not appropriate, really. It's not needed. But this amount, where you just get your body, your elbows, see his left elbow is sort of down, it's inside. Consequently, his right elbow will be a little straighter, because as he bends toward the inside, then that's going to just sort of straighten his right elbow a little bit, but you can see it's still bent. And of course the head turn. Now this is a case, now just look at his center of gravity, which would be somewhere about his belly or his lower chest. And you can see that if you imagine his body being in line with that bike would have to lean more. Those of you who are riding regular street bikes and say, oh, I don't need to do that. Well, no, you don't. But this is where this is a tool that really can help you to, like I say, make riding safer, and it really makes it more fun. Now you don't have to do a lot, and you're riding with friends or a group, and they're all just usual used to just sitting there and just cruising along, blah 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 blah, and you start doing this, and they're gonna, you don't have to do it much. There's really not much to it, The more you do it, the more effect. That's all there is to that. Now, when you talk about some of you who are maybe aspiring, road racers, we do get our butt off the seat, because we want to get as much of our body position to the inside and low as possible. As a matter of fact, it's really strange to be on a racetrack at speed and not hang off. If you learn to do it, it actually feels dangerous not to hang off. And even not at full speed. I mean, at full speed, I almost couldn't do it without hanging off to the more extreme degree that you see like road racers do. And even when we do that, our butt, we don't hang off our whole butt. It's only the edge of the seat goes to the crack of your butt. And the rest of it is all the same. It's just down low. And then the whole knee dragging thing is just, is just stick your knee out. Now there's more to it than that, but I'm not going to get into that now, because that's for, sport riding, but here's the other thing about this, whether you're doing it as a street rider and not doing it extreme, or you're doing it more as a road racer, is that you have to feel secure. So if you're hanging off like a road racer, now you would start to get a feeling like you're going to fall off the bike, even though you won't, but you do need to support yourself. So when you're hanging off a lot, that outside knee goes against the inside thigh of your outside knee goes against the tank, and that's what supports you. When you're doing it on the street and you're just doing this, there's really no need for it. If you're back, you're sitting back and you're leaning back and you try to do it, it's not going to feel quite right. Just go vertical or slightly forward, and then do your, I'm talking about when you're cornering, you're like, you can cruise all you want all day long, but then you get into that series of corners and it's like, all right, let's get with the game here. Then just get yourself a little more forward and then just get your body into the game. Elbow should kind of go when you're leaning in, the elbow kind of inside elbow goes down. Let me see if I can do this so you can see. So if I'm going this direction, I'll go like this and like this. This elbow here will bend. This one will kind of straighten a little bit. Same with like this. And even like I say, I'm even doing it more than I would do on the street, is I would just sort of go like this and slightly forward. Okay. It's like this. This is sort of awkward. Just go like this. And now you're balanced. You're pivoting in a place, in a position. You're so that your pivoting is much more feels natural and it feels balanced, because balance is a big part of us feeling confident. Um, let's see. Let me get through. Just going through my list, and then we can have a Q&A. When you move it across, if you do move across the seat at all, don't rotate. So a lot of times people will feel like they have to rotate around the back of the gas tank and say, this is the gas tank. Instead, what you want to do is, if you do move your butt at all, just move it sideways laterally. Okay. But like I say, on the street, I'll do it some. I'll move over a little bit. And when I'm, like I say, when I'm going pretty darn fast. But again, it's just another level of, getting into the game and dancing with your motorcycle. So let's see, feet. Let's talk about feet for a second. Well, I mentioned the knees when you're leaning in. If you're leaning enough, that inside knee, let's say I'm leaning this way. These are my knees against the tank. If I'm leaning this way, this knee is going to support the bike, the inside of this leg. And so that's a way that you can actually get a little bit of sense that you're not going to fall off. Your leg won't let you fall off. It's not going to happen, but again, until you get used to it. But it's also finding ways that you feel comfortable and you feel balanced and you feel secure. So when we move down now to feet, when you're just cruising around, yeah, you can have your feet in the balls, the arch of your foot, and that's fine. Once you get into, again, start cornering, now you got to get in with the game, get yourself moved a little more forward, get your elbows bent, start moving your body in, get your feet back. So the feet need to be more like a tennis player, so that your balls of your feet, so that you're, like I say, like a tennis player, as opposed to being flat-footed. Then you're not going to be able to move very fluidly. I mean, you can do it right now sitting in your chair. I mean, I'm doing it right now, just showing you. I'm on the balls of my feet, and I'm just moving from one sit bone to the next, and my feet are actually doing an awful lot with that. So, but if I do it flat-footed, it's just harder. I'm on my heels, So, so that's what happens with the feet. Now, what about floorboards? All right, so with floorboards, move your feet back to the back edge of the seat of the floorboard. So because you have forward controls, typically you'll have forward controls. It's hard to get your feet under your body, and that's how a tennis player would be. Or the way I'm sitting in my chair right now, I have my feet under my seat so that I've got, a really easy way of moving around. Forward controls make that harder. Okay, well, move your feet back to the back edge of your floorboard. So here's your floorboard, and typically you would be riding, cruising like this. And when it comes to getting to the corners, I'll move my feet back, and I will support myself at the back edge of the floorboard. Now, another benefit of that is that I'll use the heel of my boot as a feeler, so that when I get into some good corners and I'm starting to lean, the heel of my boot will start to touch the pavement before the floorboard does. And that just gives me I don't want to drag, wear down, bevel down the sole of my boot. So it just touches, and I just lift it up, and I have a gauge. It's like, all right, I'm getting close to touching the floorboard. It's just another little tool you can use. But the important thing is to get your feet back so that your support is closer to under your body than when you've got your feet out. Highway pegs, when you're riding with that, you have no support at all. That's something that whenever you're sort of cornering, that's not an athletic position in any way. Any so think about cornering as something that's more athletic. If you want to do it in a way that's that's going to be safer and just interactive. It's way more interactive and fun if you treat the bike as a dance partner and the twisty road as your dance floor, and just engage, right, and lead. And intention really actually does go a long ways toward making your inanimate motorcycle feel organic, and it will respond. Um, let's see, what else do we have? Oh, so let's talk about alternative body positioning. So when do you not lean toward the inside? Well, we've talked about riding slowly, that's a time when you would counterweight. So body position in that situation is more so that you're not going to lever the bike over at a very slow speed. You don't have stability when you're going slow. I'm talking about like a U-turn in a parking lot. So that if you lean with the bike at that point, you're giving a lever to gravity that will cause the bike to more easily fall over. So you counter that. So as the bike leans this way, you're actually going to counterweight. And so you're going to stay more upright. And that's going to help the bike, the contact of the motorcycle to be more perpendicular to the road surface. Same thing with your riding off-road, is if you lean in with the motorcycle, now you've got this, if you're on gravel, now you've got, all that, the angle of the forces and your weight is now just encouraging the bike to slide out from under you. So that's another case where you would counterweight to kind of push that motorcycle, the contact patch, perpendicular to the surface. So those are some exceptions to leaning in. That's a big mistake that a lot of people who are street riders that start to ride off-road, is that they'll lean too much with the bike. If your surface is okay, then you can lean with the bike, but off-road it varies quite a bit. So you have to really be able to evaluate how much traction you have, and that tells you whether you should counterweight or whether you don't have to or not. So what else? Well, that's all I've got as far as the whirlwind sort of tour of body positioning. So we have any questions?
We do have a question. Ed wanted to know what's one of the things that you could do to ensure that you're keeping your body relaxed, as you do go to move your body around.
So that's so I mentioned a few of the things. If you center yourself on the motorcycle as much as you can with your feet as close to under you as you can, that's right away. I mean, just look at how you sit in a chair. If you had to get up quickly, you move your feet back under you and then you stand up. And that's treating riding a motorcycle more as an activity where you're actively involved. When you're the level, Ed might be talking more about more aggressive body positioning, in which case that I get on anybody's motorcycle that asks me that question. I'll get on their motorcycle, because some bikes, the shape of the tank requires that you do something a little bit different. But generally speaking, you get your body closer to the tank than most people do, so that your arms are relaxed. You feel balanced between the wheels, and then you just move left and right. It's really about it. Now, if you do more than just a little bit, now you're starting to engage your legs, your knees to the tank. You don't want to squeeze the tank. You could just put them firmly against the tank, and that's fine. And that'll give you a sense of security. And then you can weight the foot pegs. That's another thing, is to just, if you're sitting in your chair now, and just, take a little weight off your butt and just put your weight on the foot pegs. That's another way that you can feel you're putting the center of gravity down a little bit lower. The contact of the center of gravity. So these are just little tips that you can try. So when you're out there, really just pay attention and then experiment, because again, we're not doing anything crazy. All we're doing is this. So it's not a big deal. It's just how much you do it. And the more you do it, then the more important it is that your technique is spot on. And then when we're at really high end racetrack speeds and expert level riders, then we're talking about real small nuances. Very tiny little changes make a big difference. How's that, Ed?
Yeah, I was also wondering about, say, your hands when you're holding the bars, to make sure they're relaxed and that you're not sitting on the seat too heavy. Is there anything you can do with feedback to know how you're doing that way?
So that's actually another really great point, is that by being loose on the bars, you're also now going to be able to read, traction easier. particularly the front and the suspension. You're going to be able to let the tires and the suspension and the steering and everything do their thing if you're nice and loose on the bars. If you're feeling like if you get a sense that you're fighting the motorcycle, then it's probably, I mean, make sure your bike is in good condition and all that, but it's oftentimes you're just too stiff on the handlebars. So if you're in that balanced position, centered and at the right position from the tank as much as you can, again, foot peg positioning and location is all going to factor in. But as you get into that position, you should feel as though you could just hold on to the handlebars with your thumb and your forefinger. And that should sort of be a test. Yeah, you do that and everything starts to really, roll. So even if you're holding onto the bike, with all your fingers, is just do it as though you're feeling like you're holding a baby chick, and so that you're not clamping on. So that's really important.
One of the things, actually, Ken, that Laura had asked about was in a long sweeping left turn, body leaned in, and on the left side, after your counter steering, are you pushing the bike down into the turn or away from you, or neither?
Neither, because remember, your body at that point, you counter steer, the bike goes into the corner, you just relax. I mean, this is how it goes. If you've got a motorcycle that's a reasonably neutral handling motorcycle, you should be able to pretty much, once you get it on the side of the tire and you keep the throttle steady, it should just follow a perfect arc without any more inputs from you. Now, reality is that not every motorcycle is neutral handling. You might have to give a little bit of pressure on the inside or even the outside handlebar. My Tiger, I had tires on this before I had these tires on that they oversteered. So when I went into the corner, the bikes continued to want to lean in more than I wanted it to. So as I leaned into this way, counter steered to get the bike to lean, I had to actually counter steer to keep it from continuing to lean in. So, what pressure you put on the handlebars does depend on things like that. But typically on a neutral handling motorcycle, you dip it in with the counter steering and then it's all throttle and nothing else. You just relax. And again, you can do that if your body is in the right position to feel balanced. And the idea of pushing the bike down is that the counter steering is how you get the bike to lean and move and lean in. Your body you should have no other real effect once you get the bike leaned in. That said, there are little things you can do. Like if I'm, again, I'll use the racetrack only because it's the best illustration, that if I'm leaning all the way over, I'm on the very edge of the tire, dragging my knee, and I need to tighten the corner a little bit. I don't want to give it more counter steering pressure because that front tires, could be actually just right at the very edge of traction. So I'll actually just dip my body down just a little bit more. And I'll even sort of do a little weighting of the foot pegs in a different way that actually gets the bike to just drop that extra like half a degree. And that's usually enough to get it to happen. But other than that, it's pretty much, you just relax and experiment. If you get into a lean in, a corner and then you feel like there's a little adjustment that needs to happen, try it with your body. Usually, if you're in a corner, you got, you want to tighten up a little bit, just try it with your body only, and you'll see, because the bike you've initiated the lean with the handlebars and counter steering. Once it's leaned over, now your body has more effect to kind of fine tune that lean, okay? Because you're not moving the bike from upright to lean. You can't do that with just your body weight, but you can kind of coax the bike a little bit more with your body, just dropping your helmet and your head just a little in your shoulders a little bit more. Try it out.
Thanks, Ken. I'm representing just by coincidence.
Woohoo! The mighty Z. Awesome. Just by coincidence. I like it.
Sharon was mentioning that she did her first track day and must have been tense, and it showed in her arms. And she had mentioned that you had pulled in front of her and did what you call the chicken dance.
Relax. Yep, that's one of our favorites. Just relax. So we're showing you, there's one of our other instructors, Gino. He's always at all the non-sport bike days. He'll go down through certain corners and he'll let go of his handlebars. Now he's leaned over and you're moving along at 40, 50 miles an hour and he's going down in through the corner and he'll just take his hands right off the handlebars. And he shows that exact thing I was talking about neutral handling bike, is that he didn't need any more. Once the bike is on the side of the tires do all the work. and it was downhill so that his speed was steady. If it was uphill, then he couldn't do that because that's one of the effects of the throttle in a corner is it keeps your path of travel predictable and steady. So.
Well, one of the things that I had mentioned when I had first put up your video of this is that body position for me made a big deal. I'm a big guy. I've ridden big cruisers in my life, and of course, early on in my motorcycling career, as much of your floorboards as you could scrape off, or as much metal as you could drag on the ground, you were really a good rider. And it wasn't until I realized body positioning that body positioning actually helped the bike make the corner and left the parts on the bike,
So parts on the
which was hugely helpful.
Yep. And you probably, again, once you start doing that, you start to feel that, wow, the bike is turning easier. It's like, what happened? Did I do something to the bike? No, it's the nut on the seat that got tightened. So, it's just really, you'll find all these benefits once you just, do what we're talking about here. The bike will feel like it's a lighter steering motorcycle.
Here's an interesting question. Brian Basher had said, I would imagine, especially at the race level, it might take a lot of strength and endurance to maintain proper body position. Are there any exercises that can help strengthen the muscles that you use to be able to do that?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm not in great shape. I have the benefit of being a lightweight, so I don't have a lot of weight to have to support. But for me, after doing this for so long, it's efficiency. So I can get from sitting up on a motorcycle to being in my most efficient body position without even thinking about it. But that takes time. So it doesn't take a lot of endurance for me to ride, all day long at speed. So that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind. Because a lot of people will say that endurance is really important, and it is. For if you're going to race, particularly, and you want to be at the top of your game, you should be in good shape, because this is a sport. It's definitely an athletic sport. But to answer your question, it's core. It's all about core. You counter steer into the corner, and then you relax. So your arms really aren't a big part of it. You'll be squeezing the brake, pretty hard, but that's not even that much either. So it's all about core, so that you're feeling as though you're secure, that when you move, that it's from your sort of your chest down. That's where all your tension is. It's in your feet, legs, knees, and your lower abdomen. So that's where you would work on. That's where you would work. Most people, when they come home from a track day or 2 track days, and their legs are going to be burning. They're going to be pretty. That's they're going to feel. And we used to say, or I used to say, that if you don't feel that, then you're not working hard enough. But it's not necessary. But that's where, just knowing that's where you can start to work and strengthen if you feel the need to. It certainly doesn't hurt, that's for sure. So as far as exercise to do that, that's something that everybody has their own thing, crunches and, any leg exercises, that's the sort of thing that you would work on.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
Philip had asked, do you have any thoughts on best practices for standing up on big adventure bikes?
Yeah, sure. That's definitely a body position question. No problem. No doubt there. That's one of the things that we talk about when I do adventure training, because it's a big part of it. You stand 3/4 of the time when you're off road, maybe even more. So that's a big part of this. When you are standing, again, it's all about balance, and it's all about neutral. Whether you're sitting or standing, it's just what I was mentioning before. You get your body in a position where you are feeling centered between the tires, and that you can move easily. Now, when you're going uphill, you would lean forward. When you go downhill, you would lean back. But you don't change where the position of your knees pretty much stay the same. They move a little bit, but it's all about being flexible because of the conditions on the street. It's all flat most of the time, and any sort of elevation changes are gradual. Off-road, they're going to be much more extreme. So your body moves with that, and then left and right as well. So that you have to be loose. And so standing is going to give you the most flexibility and for the motorcycle moving all around, because it's going to hit sand and it's going to hit gravel. That front wheel is going to be doing this. The rear is going to be doing that. You have to be pretty much stationary. If you do all this other stuff with the bike, now you've got problems. The tire has to manage that. So you have to find what we call the neutral position. And everybody's bike's a little different. Some people like to put on bar risers. I'm not a fan of them. You generally don't need those. It ends up making your, you feel like you're standing straight upright. So you don't generally stand straight upright. You're sort of crouched a little bit. You're bent at the waist. And again, it's more of that attack position that you're looking for. But that's something that, again, I need to demonstrate, and we do that. We practice that together for the adventure training.
Thanks, Ken. More of a comment really from Karen after your on-street training day last year. She practiced weighting the floorboards on her heavy bike, and it had a lot more effect than she thought it would.
Yeah, it really does. And so just weighting the pegs, that's what's, whether you're doing it at some point when you're cornering, certainly when you're doing tight U-turns, you want to weight the outside floorboard or foot peg as much as you can. Again, you're always going to find more control with your feet back under your butt or as far under your knees as you can. So yes, that's great. I'm glad that you found that effect to be so positive, because it's really a big game changer.
Great. Ken, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, well, let's open it up. What time is it? It's 7:20. Anybody else have anything? Let me see if I've got another. Let me share a screen again. I've got a couple more pictures. Let's see what I got here. Let's pick on Tony. How about that? So this is Tony. This was a little while ago. He's changed his body position, but this is now going to just give you an example of just refinements that can happen with body positioning. So on the left was Tony's body position. This is probably like 2007 or 2008 or something like that. And you can see how he's kind of all screwed up. His head is over the gas tank, and his shoulder is really kind of tucked forward. Forward is better than not, but he's kind of all tense. You can see the tension. Now, if you start to move to the right and you see the 20% head rotation, now I've got his head sort of dipping down a little bit more. I just photoshopped this. And even though his shoulder hasn't changed, you can see now he looks a little more relaxed. And now you see the third photo where I rotated his head and flopped it so that he's looking through the corner better. And now you can start to see where everything is starting to move toward the inside. So these are little details, that really matter, especially when you're at this sort of pace. Let me share another. This guy here, I love this guy. He had so much fun. This was in an MSF course. Find him here. There we go. And just look at the smile on his face. So you can see how he's leaning with the bike slightly to the inside. And you can see that inside arm, his right arm, is slightly bent a little bit more than the left arm. And he's got himself, even though he's got a bucket seat, you can see how he's moved himself forward enough that he can be really relaxed on the handlebars. He was a big guy, so he didn't have to move forward much, but doesn't have his tailbone plastered to the back of that seat. And now he's nice and loose and relaxed. And this was a big moment for him. I remember he really got a lot out of that day. And I think I got one more. Oh, so this is me working with somebody. He's actually a Rhode Island MSF instructor. And I did an advanced parking lot course with them a few years back. And so here I am working with him. Just, you can see what I'm doing. You can see his body position. I'm just trying to get him to get used to the idea of just moving to the inside. And he had a hard time doing that. He was so used to, 30 years of riding with his butt, centered in the seat and his shoulders aligned with his handlebars. But this was a big change for him. So this was another big day. He did great after this. It's not much. This is not brain surgery. This is actually really pretty straightforward. So next time you're out riding, just do this real simple thing. It's very, very simple. Rock onto your inside sit bone. That's it. Anybody else? I've been at this almost an hour.
I wanted to take a minute to be able to thank Ken. Ken, does this for a living, and yet Ken shares all of this with people. And Ken's belief is that, better riders are good for everybody. So I really appreciate the fact that Ken has volunteered his time to be able to do this. And as I said, especially where he does this for a living, Ken's always been very generous about sharing what he knows with everybody at no charge. You know, he certainly has enough business on his own, doing his own thing, but getting people to, you know, learn these skills and getting people to be safer on the road is, you know, really a goal for Ken, and obviously New England Riders as well. So I'm appreciative of Ken, that he's come and done this for us. I enjoy riding with Ken as well.
Let me plug my website, make sure that everybody knows. You probably all know this 100 times, but ridinginthezone.com. The training site is training.ridinginthezone.com, but you can get it just by the links on the Riding in the Zone page. There is a donation button there if you feel so inclined. Also, I have patrons. I've got about 25 or 30 patrons, and we do a little special get-togethers, hangouts, and I've been kind of neglecting them a little bit lately, but that's always fun. It's like this, but we just chat and we talk about whatever. So anyhow, those are a couple of other options for you. The non-sport bike track day, like I say, we've got good signups happening. So that's all through the Riding in the Zone website as well. And then, like I say, if you're interested in the parking lot course, the one I'm going to probably open up for May 19th, shoot me an email. Okay, that's ken@ridinginthezone.com. I think that's it. I think that's all the plugs I need to do. So.
All right, guys, have a good night and thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you both very much. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.